Hello there, and welcome back to this quiet corner beneath the stars where the night folds gently around the edges of thought. Before we drift further, take a soft moment to loosen the day from your shoulders, letting each breath find its calm rhythm so the mind may rest in the stillness between heartbeats. Imagine a horizon drawn in pale starlight, a faint arc of silver above a sleeping world, a silent sea where distant suns drift slowly in their endless tide. The air feels hushed, as though space itself is pausing while light folds across invisible dust and the darkness breathes in long and patient turns. This gentle journey is toward a question the stars themselves seem to whisper: what waits beyond the universe's edge? Not a question to chase, but a quiet journey to enter, as if walking into the furthest dream of the cosmos. It is not a single moment, but a story that moves with the wide turning of the heavens, unhurried and calm, a tale woven from light, from distance, and from silence. And yet, what if the night remembers every path a beam of light has taken? And what if the edge we imagine is not an ending, but a doorway that waits in quiet shadow, unopened? Perhaps you're listening now from a dim room, perhaps the rain is against your window, or the warmth of night gathers around you, and still we share the same sky, carrying the same mystery. If you feel at ease with such slow wanderings, you're welcome to stay here a while longer, to sit within this gentle glow, without hurry, without demand, only presence. So let your thoughts sink to the rhythm of drifting starlight, and we will begin our quiet walk through the edge of the universe, moving as the tide moves, patient, steady, and certain of its way. And so, in the quiet that follows, let us begin with the farthest light, the first gentle thread that reaches us from the dark. The light that travels across the dark does not arrive quickly, nor does it hurry, but drifts with a patience so deep that each step it takes becomes a rhythm of the universe itself, moving forward without end. From stars that burn quietly in distant reaches, from galaxies that spiral like slow breaths in the night, each ray departs and wanders, crossing the silence, folding through invisible currents that carry it closer and closer, until after ages of drifting, it brushes against the waiting eye. What is seen is never the present, but a memory carried on light, the echo of something long gone, yet still singing a song so soft it lingers even after the source has dimmed. The moment of arrival is not a burst but a whisper, the kind that feels less like an announcement than the fading of a lullaby. The image of light on its endless path resembles a voice sent across valleys, repeating, thinning, turning into something half remembered. It comes as if from a dream, soft and fragile, and once it touches the surface of vision, it dissolves, leaving only the impression of its passage. In this way, every glance at the night sky is a communion with ghosts, not in fear, but in gentleness. For the ghosts are made of radiance, not shadow, and they arrive only to remind that distance does not erase presence. The stars overhead are no longer what they appear to be, yet their voices keep returning, as though the universe refuses to let silence take over completely. It is a reminder of continuity, not as a fact to be held, but as a hum carried in the air, a quiet breath, and the thought deepens as if held, then set free. The ancients once imagined these glimmers not as drifting remnants, but as fires lit by unseen hands, small flames suspended on the canvas of the heavens. In their stories, the gods kept the lamps alive, so that night would never be absolute, so that even when darkness spread its cloak across the earth, 1,000 gentle embers would remain above, a reassurance that sleep could come without fear. Those flames were guardians, not just of sight, but of calm, giving shape to the night and turning emptiness into a roof stitched with light. There is a tenderness in the thought, as though divinity itself were a caretaker of dreams, arranging lanterns in the sky so that rest would not collapse into void. In the stillness of the present, science and story fold together, for though the fire of the gods is not what burns the idea, remains light is a flame that endures even in absence, traveling far beyond the life of its source. It carries with it not only vision but memory, and so each star is both what it was and what it wished to leave behind. The journey is so long, so unbroken, that it becomes part of the structure of time itself, a gentle bridge from then to now. And like all bridges in dreams, it is less a line of stone than a breath of air spanning quietly, invisible, but felt. Again the rhythm softens, like water settling after a ripple. To think of this light is to think of continuity without end of threads that weave silently through the dark. Some threads stretch farther than imagination can follow, yet they remain unbroken, weaving a fabric that covers the sky with patient care. When the eye looks upward, it sees not only brightness, but also the vast shadow in which brightness blooms, the embrace of night that allows every flicker to shine. There is no separation between the two, only balance, flame and cloak, echo and silence, presence and absence, all drifting together in a tide that moves as slowly as sleep itself. Thus, the farthest light becomes less about distance than about rhythm, the steady cadence of arrival after absence of voice, after silence, of glow after dark. The universe does not shout, it hums, and the hum reaches across unimaginable expanses, like a heartbeat stretched thin but never broken. The light does not claim permanence, only persistence, a refusal to vanish entirely, even when the source is no more. And in that persistence lies a quiet comfort, the sense that even when everything seems to fade, some part of it continues to move, continues to reach, continues to sing. So the night sky holds more than stars. It holds time itself, carried on fragile rays that drift like lullabies, offered across distances no foot can travel. And to rest beneath them is to listen to an ancient choir that does not end, each note softened by age, each chord wrapped in silence, yet together still forming a song not of answers, but of presence, not of endings, but of unbroken continuation, a song that invites the eyes to close, the breath to slow, and the body to yield to the same patience that light itself has known, drifting, waiting, returning again and again until sleep becomes another horizon. And beyond the song of light lies another hush, the horizon, where vision begins to fade into mist. The horizon of the universe is not a wall, nor a line that marks an ending, but a veil woven of light, and distance a limit, shaped by the patience of time itself. Every star sends its glow into the silence, yet that glow can only travel so far before it slips beyond reach, leaving the rest wrapped in stillness. What arrives to the eye is all that has had enough time to cross the sea of dark, while beyond that sea lies a vastness, hidden, unseen, yet quietly present. The vision is held close, not by boundaries of stone, but by the simple rhythm of how far light has wandered since the first breath of space. And so, the sky is both open and veiled, endless, yet softened by a curtain no gaze can move aside. It resembles the shore of an immense ocean where the sand fades into water and the water fades into haze, and though the waves stretch onward, the eye sees only until the horizon folds the rest away. Behind the line of silver mist, there are other waves, other currents, other songs of the tide, but they remain concealed, belonging to a distance that cannot yet be walked. The world feels whole at the edge, as though the line itself is a completion, yet at the same time it feels unfinished, a half-told story slipping into fog. In that quiet uncertainty, there is not loss but invitation, the sense that the unseen continues on, carrying its own breath. Like the ocean, the universe offers the surface, while hiding the depth, showing only enough for calmness, holding back the rest for dreams. The thought deepens with the hush of night. Sailors of long ago, steering their fragile vessels across dark waters, believed that the horizon was not only a line of sight, but also a place of danger, a threshold where the sea fell away into emptiness. They imagined their ships sliding into silence, never to return, swallowed by the edge itself. Yet even as they feared, they still sailed toward that distant curve, guided by stars that seemed both near and unreachable. To them, the horizon was both promise and peril, a soft veil between the known and the unknown, whispering of journeys never seen. Their stories turned the line of sight into a living thing, a quiet keeper of secrets. And though their belief has drifted into myth, the feeling of mystery remains whenever eyes meet the farthest curve of sky. The universe carries the same hush, a horizon not of water, but of light, not of waves, but of time. It is a boundary that is not truly a boundary, a line that holds no weight, yet cannot be crossed by vision. Beyond it, light is still moving, but it has not yet arrived, its journey too long, its rhythm too slow to be caught in this moment. What remains is an unbroken silence, like the air beyond hearing, still alive but hidden. And in that hiddenness lies a comfort, for not everything needs to be revealed at once. Not every secret needs to step into view. Some mysteries cradle the night like a lullaby, soothing because they are unseen, softening the edges with their absence. The thought drifts onward, steady as a tide. To sit beneath such a sky is to rest before a curtain that never parts, and yet to feel no impatience, only calm. For the horizon itself is a form of rest, a reminder that vision does not need to capture all in order to be full. The stars that shine are enough to weave the night, enough to cradle the breath into slowness, enough to let the body sink deeper into the rhythm of dark. The hidden expanse beyond the edge is not a threat, but a silence, not an end, but a depth waiting without urgency. And so, the horizon becomes not a limit, but a companion, a gentle boundary that reminds the heart to be still. The universe, like the sea, folds its distances beneath mist, showing only what can comfort the eye, keeping the rest as quiet music for another time. Light will continue its wandering. The curtain will drift farther as the cosmos breathes. But for now, the edge holds steady, shimmering faintly like a line between waking and sleep. And in that shimmer lies the invitation to let go, to drift as the horizon itself drifts to rest in the calm that comes when the known gives way to the unseen. Beyond the horizon, where sight fades into mist, there is another motion, quieter, still shaping the distance itself. Space does not stand still, for it drifts outward with a patience too vast to feel, carrying the galaxies upon it like seeds on a breeze. Each cluster of stars is borne away, not hurried, but gently guided by an unseen swelling, as though the dark itself were breathing. The fabric that cradles every sun stretches wider, folding outward in every direction, never breaking, never pausing, only loosening into new shapes. And as it opens, the farthest line of vision slips farther, still receding, as though it were a shoreline endlessly retreating. What seems fixed is never fixed. What seems near is always drawing away, carried on the tide of space. It resembles a field swept by wind, where tall grasses lean back and forth, bending, yet never snapping each stem, part of the same current. The horizon there is never one place, but always shifting, sliding outward with each breath of air, so that the further one steps, the further it drifts away. The eye follows, but the line of distance retreats forever, one pace ahead, inviting without allowing arrival. The quiet expansion feels less like a force than a rhythm, a pulse of openness, a widening that asks for no witness, yet leaves its trace upon every view. The whole sky becomes a meadow of motion, each star like a petal, stirred and carried, a dance without end. The breath of night deepens steady and low. Long ago in India, the universe was imagined as the breathing of a divine being, vast, beyond naming, whose chest rose and fell with the cycle of eternity. When this being exhaled, worlds blossomed into being, spreading out like fragrance from a flower, filling the emptiness with form and sound. And when the breath turned inward, all was drawn back into stillness, folded gently against the heart of the eternal. To dream of space as a breath is to rest in a vision where nothing is destroyed, only gathered and released, given and reversed, like the slow rise and fall of the body in sleep. The myth carries a tenderness, making the expanse not a machine, but a living tide, a rhythm older than stars. And so, the thought lingers that every distant light is drifting not by will, but by the quiet widening of the dark around it. The galaxies are lanterns set upon a flowing river, never rushing yet, never pausing, each lantern carrying its glow further and further downstream. The river itself does not end, and the light upon it does not return, but continues to drift into a distance that is always being created. It is not a race, but a procession, a pilgrimage without destination, soft and unbroken. And in this procession, the sense of time loosens, becoming less a line than a haze, less a count than a breath. The silence folds deeper. To rest under such a sky is to feel the slow yielding of space, the way the unseen stretches without strain, allowing every star to be further than it was. Yet the stillness does not break, it soothes, for the expansion carries no violence, only a gradual untying, as though the cosmos itself were sighing in sleep. The edge that recedes does not close the view, it opens it, offering a path that cannot be finished, an openness that makes the mind itself drift outward. To follow that openness is not to arrive, but to soften into it, to dissolve as the stars dissolve into their own distances. And in dissolving, there is rest, the kind of rest that does not demand an ending. The universe inhales, the universe exhales, and the galaxies are carried within that quiet breathing. The meadow of space bends and sways. The river of night flows onward. The chest of the eternal rises and falls, and all these images fold into one another like dream and echo. The retreating horizon is never lost, only redrawn, with each breath, always just ahead, always further, always soft. And in that soft retreat lies the invitation to close the eyes, to feel the widening, not as a fact, but as a lull, and to yield to the rhythm that guides all things, a rhythm without urgency, without end, without fear, beyond the widening of space, where the retreating horizon dissolves into silence. There lies a depth untouched by light. There are regions so far that no ray has yet arrived, stretches of stillness where brightness has never been born into sight. These places remain hidden, not because they are absent, but because the journey of radiance has not reached them, leaving their presence wrapped in the quiet of shadow. The darkness here is not emptiness, but a patient waiting, a long breath, held within the chest of the cosmos, softer than any silence known on earth. It is a veil that conceals, not to deny, but to soothe, offering the comfort of boundaries that fold inward like the arms of sleep. This veil resembles a cloak drawn tenderly across a world, settling not with weight, but with gentleness, as though the fabric itself were woven of stillness. Each fold covers stars unborn to vision. Each ripple gathers the unseen into rest. Each shadow hums a lull without sound. In its presence, the scattered lights of the nearer cosmos shine more tenderly, their glow sharpened against the embrace of night. The brightness and the cloak are companions, not rivals, for without the shadow, the flame would lose its shape, and without the flame, the shadow would lose its depth. Together, they form the breathing body of the universe, inhaling and exhaling across eternity. The breath grows slower, and the thought sinks deeper. Long ago, people whispered that night itself was a garment laid upon the earth by gentle hands. They believed the world needed the cloak to sleep, that without it, rest would never come, and dreams would never bloom. The dark was not feared, but welcomed, for in its folds, creatures found calm waters stilled, fires dimmed, and minds drifted inward. To say that night was a cloak was not only to picture fabric spread across the sky, but also to imagine care, a gesture of protection, as though the heavens wished to cradle every being until morning returned. The story does not shout, it hums, and in that hum, the human heart felt guarded, surrounded, safe. In the silence of the cosmic veil, the same tenderness lingers. The regions unseen are not hostile. They are simply beyond the touch of light, places where the journey of brightness has yet to arrive. The thought carries no sharp edge, only the sense of a lull, as though the universe itself had chosen to leave some corners dim, preserving the softness of not knowing. What is not revealed becomes part of the song, the rest between notes, the pause that makes the melody gentle. And so, the absence of light is not an absence at all, but a rhythm balancing the glow with quiet. The hush extends, like water settling after movement. To rest beneath this awareness is to feel darkness, not as threat, but as embrace. It is a reminder that sight has limits, and that within those limits, There is peace, for not everything must be revealed at once. Some truths are lullabies, waiting to be heard later. Some visions are dreams waiting for another night. In the meantime, the cloak of shadow asks nothing, demands nothing, offers only its cool presence, wide and endless and tender. To close the eyes beneath such a cloak is to mirror what the universe itself has already done, folding what cannot yet be shown into silence. The image deepens further, the mind sways with the thought. Darkness in this vision is not a void, but a cycle, a gentle return, a season of rest. It drifts across the cosmos like a tide, and within its ebb and flow, light itself gains meaning. For light emerges from shadow, as dawn emerges from night, and shadow receives the light again, as dusk gathers the day. Both movements are slow, and both are necessary, for together they make the rhythm that rocks the stars to sleep. This is the lull of creation, not finality, not end, but a soft pulse unbroken. So the cosmic cloak remains a garment spread across regions, too distant for light, a hush that soothes more than it hides. Beneath its folds, the stars we do see burn brighter, their voices clearer against the quiet. Beyond its folds, the promise of more light drifts, still on its way like a song, traveling through long corridors of silence. And between what shines and what is veiled, there lies a balance as ancient as breath itself, one that invites eyes to soften, lungs to slow, and the body to yield to sleep, while the cloak of night continues its watch, tender and infinite. From the hush of darkness, the thought drifts toward the edge, where sight itself begins to fade. Beyond the veil of shadow, where light falls away into distances too wide to follow, there's the thought of a boundary. Yet the boundary is not the universe itself, but only the edge of sight, the furthest reach of the gaze. What lies beyond is not closed, only hidden, as though the eyes themselves were lanterns, whose glow fades before the path is finished. The vision halts, but the expanse continues, stretching on like a silence that refuses to end. It is not the universe that is limited, only the circle of perception, a circle soft and incomplete. The image rests like a dream of water, where a river glides through mist, and no bank can be seen beyond the nearest one. To stand by such a river is to feel its endlessness, to know it does not stop even when the eyes lose its course. The water flows on patient, without a rival, carrying its song farther than hearing. Each ripple suggests a distance, each shimmer hints at continuation, yet the far shore is never found. So too, the universe carries its current, flowing without end, while the gaze remains fixed to what it can hold. The unseen is not absence, but a hidden stream still moving. A gentle hush gathers like a pause before a breath. In the tales of the North, the world itself was said to be encircled by a river, wide and unbroken, reflecting everything that stood upon its shores. Mountains, forests, and creatures all gazed into its surface, their images drifting along the current, yet none could cross to the other side. The far bank was forever beyond reach, not forbidden, but simply unattainable, a mirror that could be looked upon but never touched. This river was less a threat than a mystery, a reminder that not every path must be crossed, that some horizons are meant to be seen only as whispers. It wrapped the world in an endless embrace, soft and enclosing, the way night enfolds the day. The thought of that river lingers when the sky is seen as boundary, for the edge is not a wall, but a reflection, not an end, but a veil that suggests more. What lies beyond may be another shore or another sky, or simply more of the same current flowing without pause. The mind cannot know yet. It is calmed by the not knowing, soothed by the rhythm of water that continues even unseen. The horizon of the cosmos is like that, a reflection without limit, an echo without source, a song carried just beyond hearing. The further one tries to reach, the further the line drifts away, as if protecting the serenity of mystery itself. The rhythm slow soft as a cradle rocking. To imagine the border of vision as a riverbank is to rest within the awareness that boundaries are illusions of sight. The current flows whether or not it is watched, and the stars drift whether or not they are counted. The eyes hold only a portion, yet the whole continues its unbroken movement. There is peace in this, for it frees the heart from the need to grasp everything, allowing it instead to drift with what is given. What is unseen becomes part of the dream, part of the hush that makes the scene more luminous. Mystery is not a loss, but a lull, a softening of edges, a place where thought itself may rest. The hush deepens, the current slows, the body yields. In this gentle sense, the edge of a vision becomes a lullaby, not a barrier. It sings of distances without end, of waters that never settle, of horizons that slide farther as one approaches. To lie beneath the sky is to lie beside that river, to feel its slow movement like a heartbeat, steady, patient, unending. And though the other shore will never be reached, its reflection is enough, glimmering faintly, promising without demanding. The lull is in the continuity, the assurance that flow will not cease even when eyes close. So the universe holds its border, like a dream, a river in the dark, gliding past unseen lands, carrying the reflections of all that exists. The edge of sight is but one bank, the far side hidden in mist, and the water between them is the endless breath of the cosmos. To rest in its presence is to accept the gentle truth that vision ends, but the flow does not, that horizons fade, but the song continues, that the unseen is not emptiness, but the hush that carries sleep. And with that hush comes the final cadence, the night's own lull, rocking the heart towards silence, where eyes may close and dreams may drift, carried by the same unbroken current. And from the horizon that folded like a riverbank, fading into mist, the thought drifts further still, toward what lies beyond the line, where vision halts into regions that wait quietly, unseen, but not absent. Behind the veil of light's reach, there may stand countless galaxies, vast gatherings of stars that haven't yet revealed themselves, their glow still wandering through the corridors of distance. They are present, though the eye does not hold them, standing in silence as though hidden by fog. What remains concealed is not gone, only waiting patient as forests before dawn. It resembles a woodland, veiled in morning mist, where trunks and branches are firm yet softened, withdrawn, almost dreamlike. Step closer, and outlines shift, shapes blur, yet the knowledge lingers that the trees remain rooted, though unseen. So too, the farthest realms of the cosmos stand behind the veil, steady though hidden, enduring though unlit. They are a forest wrapped in distance, their leaves trembling with songs that have not yet reached the ear. The mist does not erase them, it only turns their presence into promise. The rhythm softens like breath settling deeper. In this vision, the universe ceases to be only what is seen, and becomes instead a weave of presence and absence of flame and silence. The known sky is but a clearing, luminous and near, while around it stretch meadows, not yet reached by light fields, where stars breathe in shadows, waiting to exhale. The thought of these hidden places brings no unrest, only calm for mystery itself, is a kind of cradle, holding what the eye cannot hold, keeping it safe, in quiet distance. Long ago in the tales of the North, there was said to be a forest at the edge of the world, a place where the sun never walked. Within its branches lingered a hush too deep for day, a twilight that never lifted. To wander there was to walk among shadows that did not threaten, but embraced, giving a sense that the world was larger than its visible edge. The story was not told as fear, but as wonder, a reminder that the unseen exists alongside the seen, stretching the imagination beyond the border of the horizon, and the thought rests gently as if the old legend folds into the present silence of the stars. For the forest beyond sight is not unlike the galaxies hidden past the horizon, both unseen, both alive, both patient in their stillness. What lies behind the veil need not be grasped to be real, and what dwells in shadow need not shine to exist. The unseen hums with quiet, offering its presence as softly as a lullaby carried on air. It comforts not by revealing, but by reminding that beyond every edge lies more. The hush deepens like dusk falling slowly across a plain. To think of the unseen cosmos is to rest within a balance where the visible offers clarity and the hidden offers calm. One without the other would be incomplete, for the stars shine brighter when shadow surrounds them, and mystery soothes more when light has already shown enough. The unseen regions of the universe are not walls, they are pauses, the rests in the melody, the silence that allows the song to be gentle. They are a reminder that not all must be uncovered to bring peace, and so the unseen remains veiled and patient, a forest waiting in fog, a horizon resting behind another. It does not vanish, it does not close, it only lingers, wrapped in stillness, humming with presence that time itself has not yet delivered. To imagine it is to yield to the lull of distance, to breathe with the thought that more exists than what is seen, and in that breath lies calm, for the unseen asks for nothing but acceptance, nothing but rest. Thus the cosmos extends, not with urgency, but with softness, the known folding into the unknown, the visible drifting into the veiled. The forest waits, the galaxies hum, the horizon whispers of more, and together they cradle the night into gentleness. To lie beneath such a sky is to rest beneath both sight and silence, to feel the comfort of what is present and what is hidden. And in that comfort, the body yields, the eyes close, and the unseen becomes part of the dream, a dream wide enough to hold all forests, all stars, all horizons beyond reach. And from the forest, veiled in mist, where unseen branches wait in silence, the thought drifts onward toward an even wider hush, a vision where not just hidden galaxies exist, but perhaps other worlds altogether, each carrying its own breath of time. The horizon that seemed a limit becomes only one layer, for beyond it may lie countless veils, each folding back to reveal a cosmos of its own. What is seen may be one clearing in an endless woodland, one lantern in a long corridor, one drop in a dew-laden web. The mind does not demand proof. It only listens to the quiet possibility. The image rests like morning dew strung across a web, each droplet quivering with its own small sun, luminous yet apart. None touches, yet all belong to the same thread, woven by strands unseen, carried in the same breath of air. So too may universes be separate, but joined in silence, each shimmering with its own rules, each swaying with its own rhythm. To imagine this is to yield to wonder, not as noise but as calm, for the thought itself arrives, like dawn, light soft, unhurried. The rhythm slows like the hush that precedes sunrise. In this vision, every universe is a chamber in a hall too wide to walk, each with its own measure of dark and flame. Some may bend differently, some may breathe another law of being, yet all remain suspended, side by side, in stillness. There is no clash, no insistence, only quiet presence, multiplied like lanterns glimmering across a night valley. The gaze cannot travel between them, but the imagination can, touching lightly, as though walking barefoot upon dew. Long ago, in stories from the East, each star was said to be more than a point of fire. It was a world entire, complete and self-contained, suspended in silence above. The sky was a roof, filled not with sparks, but with realms each holding its own life, each standing alone, yet never falling away. These tales turned the night into a dwelling of infinite rooms, where every gleam belonged to a greater house of being. In their gentleness, the stories brought closeness, for distance no longer meant solitude, and so the thought lingers, weaving story and silence into one. The ancient idea of stars as worlds does not feel far from the vision of universes as droplets. Both soften the vastness, turning the unreachable into presence. What cannot be touched still comforts, what cannot be entered still glows. In this way, the unseen multiverse becomes less a theory than a lull, a murmuring possibility that settles the heart. For in endless company solitude dissolves, leaving only a sense of belonging spread across the hush. The hush deepens, slow as a tide returning. To think of many universes is to rest in the thought of abundance of presences, uncounted yet unhurried. They do not shout for recognition, they do not vie for notice. They shimmer quietly in their own circles, complete without demand. Each is a song heard only by itself, yet together they form a choir, too soft to overwhelm, too wide to end. It is not a choir of answers, but of continuations of echoes, layered within echoes. And so, the multiverse remains a vision not of proof, but of patience. The web of dew glistens with infinite beads. The night roof holds infinite stars. The sky hums with infinite whispers. To rest within this thought is to be held not by a single world, but by countless, each a reminder that being itself flows outward in ways beyond the eye. And in that flow lies comfort, a stillness born of vastness, a sleep rocked not by certainty, but by possibility. And from the shimmer of countless droplets, each a quiet universe suspended in its own circle, the thought turns once more toward the shape of the one that holds this very sky, and how even it may carry no ending at all. If space bends gently upon itself, then every path outward curves again, folding back like a tide that never breaks. What seems like distance may only be return. What seems like horizon may only be a circle carrying the traveler without ever delivering an edge. The cosmos in this vision is whole, complete, not because it is closed, but because it has no rim. It resembles a walk upon the surface of a great sphere, where every step lengthens the way, yet none reaches a final border. The ground beneath curves softly, carrying each footfall back toward the unseen beginning. The circle grows wider, yet remains unbroken, so that the very idea of ending falls away. There is only continuation round and seamless, like the rise and fall of a chest in sleep. The circle cradles all motion within, enclosing without confinement. The hush settles, as though the air itself yields to the roundness. To imagine such a universe is to let go of lines and corners, to dissolve into the rhythm of endless return. There is no edge to fall beyond, no wall to halt against, only the softness of motion carried onward. The heart finds comfort in this, for it speaks of belonging, of never straying outside the whole. Each star is gathered, each breath enclosed, all held by the same unseen curve. Long ago, voyagers across the Pacific spoke of a sea that ended nowhere, a water that opened wave into wave without limit. Their canoes drifted upon the rolling swells, guided by stars, but never by borders, for the ocean itself was a circle too vast to break. The waves whispered not of destination, but of return, each crest opening into another, each ripple folding back into the tide. To those who listened, the ocean was not only water, but song, an unending cycle that hummed beneath the sky. And so, the sea became a mirror for the cosmos, both round, both ceaseless, both carrying every motion back into themselves. The Polynesian stories did not fear this lack of ending. They found in it a rhythm, a cradle, that rocked boats as it might rock stars. The ocean was the universe an ocean, both rising and falling with the same breath. To sail upon it was to belong, not to conquer, for no shore could claim the final word. The rhythm deepens slow as a tide under moonlight. To rest within such a vision is to feel edges dissolve, to feel the body itself folded into a larger circle. Distance is no longer a measure, but a motion, a drifting that always returns. The circle does not demand arrival, nor does it allow exile. It is an embrace without seam, unbroken by any frontier. Within it, questions quiet, for what is continuous needs no conclusion. And in this roundness, sleep finds its echo. The breath that rises and falls does so in a circle inhalation, into exhalation, return into return. The night itself cycles into dawn, and dawn into night again, round, without rupture, complete without closure. The universe too may hum, in this way, a soft loop infinite in its gentleness. To imagine it is to imagine not a path, but a lull rocking the mind as the sea rocks its voyagers, steady and without end. Thus, the thought rests folded into the vision of a cosmos without borders. The circle holds all things stars, and silence alike, each turning within the same endless rhythm. To drift into that rhythm is to yield to calm, to accept that there is no falling away, no final shore. Only the tide remains. Only the cycle continues. Only the hush deepens. And in that hush, the heart softens, the eyes close, and the body drifts, carried by the roundness itself into the stillness of sleep. And from the circle that curves without end, the thought drifts deeper still into folds, not round, but veiled where distance grows too vast for even light to arrive. Beyond the turning of horizons lies a stillness, untouched, a place that waits outside the reach of radiance, its silence unbroken by the passage of glow. These regions remain unseen, not because they are absent, but because the messenger of brightness has not yet crossed their threshold. They are chambers of the cosmos, held in reserve, cloaked in a hush so deep it becomes a cradle. It resembles a blanket laid gently across a sleeping world, not to deny the day, but to soften its edges to cover what is fragile with a calm weight. The fabric stretches endlessly, folding light into silence, pressing its presence into quiet without removing it from being. Beneath it, there is no void, only patience, no end, only pause. The unseen continues, even as it lies hidden, rocking slowly in darkness, and the blanket itself hums a lull woven of shadow. The rhythm slackens like breath, let out in long release. To imagine such unreachable spaces is to surrender to silence that does not erase but holds the way soil holds seeds beneath its cover. What is beyond the touch of sight is not gone, but waiting its moment of radiance, deferred its story, still folded within itself. The unseen becomes part of the larger harmony, filling the gaps between notes, with rest turning emptiness into music. The hush itself becomes as necessary as the flame balancing presence with concealment. In the ancient tales of China, there was spoken of a cosmic egg, vast and silent, holding within it the breath of all things before their time began. Inside, there was only darkness, a stillness complete, a silence unbroken, and yet within that silence, a slow stirring gathered a pulse forming in secret until at last the shell parted and light poured forth. The heavens and the earth were born from that quiet, but before their dawning, the hush was all. Creation itself began with sleep. So too the unreachable reaches of the cosmos feel like that egg whole, and hidden keeping within them what cannot yet emerge. The darkness that surrounds them is not cruel, but tender and act of keeping safe, of waiting until the rhythm calls for opening. What rests inside is not lost, but preserved, swaying gently in the cradle of silence. To think of it is to feel the patience of time, a patience that allows mystery to remain mystery without demand for unveiling. The hush deepens like dusk folding into night. To rest beneath such thought is to feel the comfort of not knowing the ease, of letting some things remain veiled. For not every secret must be revealed at once, not every distance pressed into sight. The mind finds peace in this balance, for the known and the unknown move together, flame beside shadow, glow beside lull. The unseen becomes a kind of guardian, protecting the quiet that the heart needs to fall into stillness. And so, the silence that swallows is not a silence of absence, but of embrace. It gathers what the eye cannot hold and keeps it in a rhythm beyond urgency. The stars that shine are enough for tonight. The ones unseen will arrive in their own time, their own season. Until then, the cloak remains softening the edges, giving shape to the dark. It is less a mystery to solve than a lullaby to rest within a melody without sound sung by the unseen. Thus, the cosmos holds its hiddenness, vast and unbroken, tender, as cloth patient as breath. The egg of creation remains uncracked in some places. The blanket of night is spread wide, and the hush continues without end. To drift within, it is to yield to the rhythm of concealment, to let mystery soothe rather than unsettle. For the silence that holds mysteries is not finality, but continuity, rocking the stars, the seas, and the body alike into the calm of sleep. And from the hush that keeps secrets veiled, the drift continues, sliding into a depth where even questions lose their edges, and the thought of an outside fades like mist dissolving into night. The path turns toward horizons that may have no beyond, toward spaces that either stretch forever or bend softly back upon themselves. What lies further is not absence, but a circle without seam, a dream without boundary, endless in its stillness. The mind leans into this possibility as into a lull where nothing must be found and nothing must be reached. It feels like sleep itself, a field without corners, a sky without end. In slumber, there is no edge, no starting line, no point of return, only a gentle immersion that has neither entrance nor exit. The darkness becomes oceanic, carrying the body as water carries a drifting leaf, rocking it into rhythm. Each moment folds into another, without beginning, without close, a song without refrain. Rest deepens, not as a fall, but as a continuation of breathing. The Egyptians once told that sleep was not mere pause, but a voyage through another sky, a journey across hidden heavens that mirror the visible dome. In the hours of night, the traveler would drift beneath stars, unseen, guided by silence instead of sun. When morning came, the voyage did not end in departure, but in return, as though the sleeper had touched another world and brought back its stillness. Darkness was not absence for them, but passage a bridge between skies. So the image lingers sleep, as cosmos, as sleep, both endless, both without edge. To close the eyes is to step into a sphere that has no rim to turn within a chamber whose walls never arrive. Even if space itself bends, closed like a circle, the circle offers no confinement, only the rhythm of continual return, where every step is both departure and arrival. The dream bends like that too, folding back into itself, repeating without repetition, resting without conclusion. And in this vision, the mystery of outside ceases to trouble, for there is no border to cross, no line to define. What exists simply flows as a tide, flows as breath flows, as time itself stretches and yields. The unseen becomes less a question and more a cradle, less a frontier and more a rhythm. To imagine infinity is to let go of edges, to feel how the horizon curves back into itself, turning every wandering into rest. The hush gathers deeper, like night folding into its second sleep. To drift in this thought is to find comfort in the absence of limits, to let the idea of ending dissolve into the softness of continuation. The mind need not hold on, the body need not resist, for there is no wall ahead, no cliff to reach. Only the rhythm remains circling without break, circling without demand. The dark becomes gentle, the void becomes tender, the infinite becomes a lull. Thus, the story closes not with a gate, but with a breathing sky. The stars that shine fade slowly into one another, their light blurring like dreams at dawn. The silence that began as mystery now hums as song, a song that does not end, a song that carries. To sink within it is to float in a sleep without seam, to rest in a circle that never stops turning. Night itself becomes the cradle space itself, the blanket and stillness, the final breath. And from the hush that kept secrets, folded in shadow, the thought drifts onward toward the glow that travels endlessly, carrying with it whispers of time already past. What reaches the eyes now is not the present, but the trace of what once was a shimmer that began long before and wandered through vast corridors before arriving. Every star is both flame and memory, every gleam a message stretched across distance. To see the night is to see the past. To touch the sky with sight is to touch what no longer exists, yet still lingers. It is like hearing a voice in a dream, soft and low, telling stories that have already ended, yet still echoing. The light comes as remembrance faint and patient, traveling with no haste, bringing not just brilliance but history. Each spark is a record, each glimmer a verse written upon the fabric of darkness. The night above is a library, its shelves filled not with paper, but with fire, its words not inked, but luminous. The pages open themselves, silently, one after another. The rhythm moves slowly, like the steady exhalation of a chest at rest. In this rhythm, light is not only brightness, but breath a pulse from the deep past that continues to move forward. Looking outward is to listen inward, for what arrives is not merely flame, but the memory of flame, a candle still glowing in the windless hall of space. Distance becomes time, and time becomes story, folding one into another until the border between them dissolves. So, the stars become ancient keepers, guarding not just the present sky, but the layered nights behind it. Their light drifts with patience, as though unwilling to let their tales vanish, carrying the warmth of ages that have already slipped away. They shine now as remnants, yet not diminished, for memory itself glows when carried in silence. To look at them is to look through time's veil into chambers where moments once breathed and are still breathing. The glow is fragile, but the message is steady. It resembles a memory spoken in whispers, a recollection that trembles yet persists, lingering in the quiet corners of thought. The light is soft, as though wrapped in dusk, but within it lie traces of creation itself, the first sparks of a fire that taught the dark how to open. Each shimmer is a memory the universe refuses to forget, a dream, retold every night in glimmers scattered across the dome. The past is not gone, it is only diffused into radiance. The hush deepens, like twilight lengthening upon a plain. To think of ancient light is to think of time slowed into brilliance, time that stretches but never breaks, time that moves, not in urgency but in waves. Every gaze upward is a journey backward, each look a step along a trail already walked by fire. Yet there is no regret in this backward glance, only calm, for the past itself seems to offer its glow as comfort. What once burned still warms, what once shone still soothes. Long ago, in the tales of Babylon, the stars were said to be writings of the divine records etched upon the sky by unseen hands. Each gleam was more than flame. It was a word, a decree, a memory, preserved not in stone but in fire. To read the heavens was to read the language of the gods, a script that told not only of destiny, but of remembrance. In their vision, the sky was a tablet, the night a scroll, the constellations verses, aligned across the dome. To look upward was to enter a story larger than earth. And so, legend and science fold together, for both speak of light as message, as history, as memory inscribed upon the dark. The thought of stars as divine records is not far from the vision of them as echoes of long past flames. Both suggest that nothing is lost, that what once glowed still glows, that memory itself can shine across endless distance. The heavens become a book without end, song without pause, a cradle where remembrance rocks gently. The rhythm softens further, as though night itself exhales. Ancient light does not rush, it does not demand. It arrives like breath in the dark, like embers glowing quietly beneath ash, steady waiting to be seen. To rest beneath such light is to rest within time itself, to be held not only by the present, but by all the moments that came before. The body yields to this vastness, the eyes grow heavy beneath its calm. Thus, the ancient light endures carrying memory across the hush of distance. It is both star and story, both flame and echo, both present and past. To imagine it is to be soothed, for it tells that nothing vanishes entirely, that what once shone continues to shimmer, carried softly across the night. The sky becomes a cradle of memory, luminous and endless whispering, old tales as lullabies. And in its whisper sleep gathers, folding the heart into stillness. And from the whispers of light that carried memory across ages, the thought moves deeper still toward the histories folded within each spark, stories not spoken but embedded, waiting quietly in their glow. The night above is not only illumination, it is archive, every flicker, a vessel bearing the weight of uncountable years. To gaze upward is to open a book already written, though its ink is fire and its parchment the dark. The words are slow, stretched thin across distance, yet the meaning lingers, resting in silence. Each point that shines is more than presence. It is passage, a trail through ages that still burns with faint remembrance. The glow that meets the eye tonight began long before, carrying with it a chronicle of beginnings that drifted onward without pause. It resembles the reading of a weathered page, where the letters, though faded, retain their shape, whispering gently of what once was. The sky becomes not just a dome, but a library of old pages, their margins worn, their sentences still breathing. The rhythm deepens like breath, drawn slowly into calm. What shines above carries not only brilliance, but depth, each gleam, holding layers folded within layers of time, of becoming, of passing. The stars do not reveal only their flame, they reveal their age, their story, their persistence across shadows. Each glimmer is an archive, each shimmer a chapter, each pause in the dark a space between words. Together, they weave a record beyond the scale of any single moment. The thought lingers on memory itself, and how the cosmos seems to hold it, not in sound but in light, not in parchment but in presence. Memory here is not fragile, it is radiant, preserved within beams that continue across corridors too vast to be crossed by breath alone. To look into the heavens is to see recollection itself made visible, the past carried forward not by hands, but by rays. It hums like a lullaby of time steady and unbroken. It resembles a scroll held open by silence, the letters shimmering faintly, though no hand writes them anew. Each glow is both voice and silence, both presence and absence, both history and present calm. What appears as a single spark is in truth a chorus of years, singing not loudly, but in undertones weaving age into radiance. The eyes may see only light, but the heart senses story pressed into brightness, softened by distance. The hush folds deeper, like twilight, sinking slowly into night. To rest beneath this vision is to rest within memory itself, not personal, not fleeting, but vast, a recollection of the universe breathing across its own span. The points above are keepers, their flames, guardians of histories that stretch beyond measure. They shine with patience, with stillness, with endurance that soothes rather than overwhelms. Each spark assures that what once was still lingers, still hums. still glows. In the old tales of Greece, there was spoken of Mnemosyne, goddess of remembrance, mother of the muses, keeper of memory itself. She was not simply thought of as recollection, but as the very breath of history, the one who preserved what time might otherwise erase. Her presence was the assurance that nothing vanished, that every story found its thread in the greater weave. To imagine her is to imagine the sky itself as her voice, the stars her words, the constellations her verses stretched across the dark. And so, the myth folds into the vision of the night, for the goddess of memory is not far from the image of stars, as archives of their own past. Each point of fire becomes her script, each beam her whisper, each shimmer her reminder. The heavens become her vast book, its pages infinite, its chapters unfolding, not in haste, but in lull. To look upward is to hear her song, not through ears, but through stillness, as memory itself turns into presence. The rhythm softens further, like the breath before sleep deepens. To imagine each spark as ancient history is to find calm in the continuity of existence, the way past and present overlap, the way light bridges what is gone with what is here. It does not urge the mind forward nor backward. It only rocks it gently between the two, dissolving the boundary between memory and presence. The thought of time becomes less sharp, more fluid, more soothing. Thus the past endures, not as burden, but as radiance folded into every beam that reaches the night. The stars remain as both guardians and storytellers, carrying their histories without demand, without urgency, without end. Their presence reminds that what once burned still breathes, what once vanished still hums in light. The sky becomes a cradle of memory, and within its cradle, the heart rests, soothed by the certainty that nothing truly fades, only transforms into glow. And from the memory carried within every star, where ancient light hums like pages already written, the thought drifts forward toward a horizon where no word has yet been said, no story yet unfolded. The sky, that once opened as an archive, now stands also as a threshold, a line where vision fades not only into distance, but into time that has not arrived. At that edge, what is seen becomes silence, and what is unseen becomes possibility. The hush deepens, and the mind leans softly into what has not yet opened. It resembles a door left slightly ajar, the frame firm, but the space beyond still withheld a breath of air slipping through the narrow seam. The light of today does not yet carry what tomorrow will bring the beam's end, where the page is blank, leaving only the faint breeze of what may come. To stand before it is not to press through, but to rest in the stillness of a threshold, the sense of a presence waiting behind. The future lingers, like a fragrance behind a curtain, unseen yet unmistakably there. The rhythm steadies slow, and even like footsteps that pause before a gateway. At the rim of vision, there is not only distance, but delay, the unfolding of moments not yet given voice. The universe carries its flame outward, yet beyond the circle of light lies the hush of what will be folded, but not absent. This hush is not emptiness, but anticipation, a cradle of what the cosmos has not yet sung. The night becomes both memory and promise, both archive and prelude. It resembles standing before a torii gate, the painted wood rising against the sky, marking the passage, not from one place to another, but from the known into the veiled. The structure is not a wall, but a symbol, reminding that beyond the visible world, there lies a realm unseen, a world not yet entered, but always present in possibility. To walk toward it is not to hurry, it is to breathe, to sense that the air itself changes, whispering of what waits beyond the frame. The hush of the gate is not absence, it is welcome. The thought lingers gently on this image, for the horizon of the cosmos carries the same stillness, the same breath of crossing. The farthest edge of sight is no conclusion, but an invitation, like the gateway, like the half-open door, like the hush before a word begins. What lies beyond is not demanded, not revealed in haste, but allowed to rest until its time. The future remains folded like the seed before its bloom, like the tide before its turning. The rhythm slows again, as if the body itself settles into the sense of waiting. To think of the unopened future is to yield to patience, to feel the gentleness of time that has not yet pressed itself into form. The stars above hold their memory, but the horizon holds their continuation, yet unwritten, yet undelivered. Between the two lies, calm for the balance of what has been and what will be, is itself a kind of lullaby, soothing in its symmetry. The unseen is not hurried, it is kept safe in its silence. In the hush of old stories, the Torii was never only wood and stone, but a symbol of passage, a place where the mortal world leaned against the divine. To stand beneath it was to feel the threshold itself, to sense that beyond the frame lay another realm, not denied, but not yet entered. The myth spoke less of conquest and more of reverence, of pausing at the line where one breath ends and another begins. The gate became the embodiment of possibility, not answer. And so the tale folds into the sky, for the cosmos itself holds such gates. The rim of what is seen becomes a torii of light, a boundary that whispers of realms beyond. Each star, each horizon, each quiet seam of space becomes a doorway into tomorrow, standing silent, waiting, neither closed nor fully open. The air that moves through is not revelation, but reminder that time itself unfolds like a gate opening slowly with patience. The hush deepens, slow as dusk, folding into midnight. To think of the unopened future is to rest within its stillness, not reaching, not forcing, but letting the thought of what comes drift gently like breath through a door ajar. The edge of the vision becomes not an end, but a rhythm, the inhale that has not yet become. Exhale, the pause between notes. This pause holds comfort, for it cradles the mind in the assurance that not all must be known at once. Thus the cosmos extends not only backward into memory, but forward into promise, its edges carrying both archive and anticipation. The sky hums with both recollection and invitation, both what has been and what will be balanced in the same breath. To rest within this thought is to feel not the pressure of what is hidden, but the gentleness of what waits. The future, like the past, rocks the heart into quiet, reminding that time itself is a lull. And in that lull, the body drifts, as though passing beneath the gate, not to rush into tomorrow, but to rest in the calm of its presence. The door remains ajar. The wind hums softly. The torii rises against the stars. The future does not demand entry. It only offers its hush, and within that hush, the night deepens, carrying the sleeper across the threshold of stillness into rest as patient as time itself. And from the gate, half open to what has not yet arrived, the thought drifts inward toward the rhythm that carries all things not only through space, but through the hush of hours, beyond the horizon that feels like a doorway into tomorrow, there lingers another current, more subtle, more patient, stretching as though woven through the very breath of the cosmos. Time itself does not fall like a drop, but lengthens like a river, wide and unhurried, bending gently as it flows. What waits ahead seems not only distance, but duration unfolding like mist. The current appears as a stream that carries, without haste, its waters smoothing stones, its ripples soft against the banks. There are no sudden falls, no abrupt ends, only the long weaving of moments, folding into moments. Each instant feels like a leaf set upon the flow, drifting not toward conclusion, but toward continuation, carried as though in the palm of something vast. The river of time stretches onward, dissolving edges into its song. And in that song, the hush deepens. The breath of the cosmos seems to expand in both directions, outward into distances unseen, and inward into hours that stretch like silk. The sense of time bends as though softened, lengthening beneath the weight of stars, expanding the pauses between heartbeats. What once felt like a step may extend into a walk. What once felt like a walk may linger into a wandering. The fabric of duration seems to loosen, giving space to each moment, as though cradling it in a wider hand. And the cradle closes softly, without seam. The thought turns gentle as dusk to the ancient tales of seasons told in circles. In the stories of the Celts' time was not a line drawn straight, but a wheel that turned and returned, carrying autumn into winter, winter into spring, spring into summer, and onward again. To them, each moment seemed not vanished, but waiting its return each cycle, a breath in the great lung of the world. The wheel spun slowly, endlessly, humming with the same rhythm that rocks both stars and sleep. And within that wheel, all rested in place. The hush of such vision feels like a field watched by clouds, where shadows stretch and drift, yet return in gentle pattern. Day lengthens into night, night lengthens into dawn, and all turns, without breaking, without rushing. The wheel and the river seem woven together, one circling, one flowing, both carrying the weight of hours into a rhythm too wide to resist. To drift upon them is to release urgency, to sink into patience as into a soft tide, and the tide hums quietly, like a lullaby under breath. The sense of expansion lingers, as though time itself breathes deeper when held in silence. Each star that glimmers seems to pause longer before fading. Each echo seems to stretch before dissolving. Each moment seems to widen into a valley of calm. The river carries the wheel. The wheel turns within the river, and together they cradle thought into slowness. The pause between beats grows tender, lengthening into comfort, and from that comfort stillness gathers. To imagine time as stretching is to feel the body itself soften the pulse, slowing the breath, drawing longer, as though drawn into the rhythm of the sky. What once seemed a quick flicker now drifts into a lingering flame. What once seemed fleeting now feels sustained. The unfolding of hours seems less like passage and more like resting upon a current too broad to end. And the current itself closes around, all like water around a drifting branch. The myth and the science seem to fold into one another. The wheel turning within the river flowing through the wheel. The circle of seasons hums within the stretching of moments, both speaking of continuance, without finality of rhythm, without edge. Time seems not to depart, but to return, not to vanish, but to widen. The hush holds it, giving it space, giving it patience, giving it the softness of breath, released into night. And the night itself receives it gently. Thus the thought lingers, wrapped in the vision of a river, without falls of a circle, without seam. Hours lengthen into one another, seasons fold endlessly, and time itself feels as though it expands, not with force but with tenderness. The unseen hand that carries the stars seems also to carry the minutes, stretching them softly, holding them until they dissolve. And in that holding, sleep rises unhurried, like a tide that draws everything into its embrace. And from the wheel that turns from the river that flows, the drift continues. Beyond the soft lengthening of hours, there appears another hush, a silence deeper still, where not only time and space stretch, but where even light seems woven into the same endless breath. The rhythm turns onward, folding into the next vision, as gentle as dusk, leaning into night. And from the river that lengthened without falls from the wheel, that turned without seam, the thought drifts further into the fabric that seems to bind them both, where distance and duration no longer appear as two, but as one woven surface, breathing in silence. What felt like river and circle now folds into a single cloth stretched wide across the hush of night. The weave appears soft yet endless, carrying both the span of stars and the patience of hours, as though each thread holds both light and rhythm. And the cloth seems to hum gently, like air stirred by a lull. The sense deepens, as if every moment is not only a drop in the river or a turn of the wheel, but a note stretched upon a song, one that does not break, one that carries. Each note feels drawn out, not hurried toward an end, but leaning tenderly into the next, blending, dissolving, yielding. The melody flows like dusk into night, like night into dawn, without interruption, without rupture, and in that flowing rest gathers softly. The cloth of space and time seems woven of threads, too fine to separate, shimmering, faintly like silk held in moonlight. To touch one is to feel both, to trace a line across the weave is to wander both distance and hour at once. The fabric bends gently under the weight of stars, stretches quietly under the breath of time, yet remains whole, seamless in folding. It does not declare its pattern, it only holds, and in holding it, soothes. Long ago, in the hymns of the Veda, the universe appeared not as a wall of stone or a dome of glass, but as music itself, a hymn without conclusion. Each sound was thought to arise from a breath divine, stretching into the air, folding back into silence, yet never ceasing. The world was heard as melody not built, as structure, as though creation itself drifted into being on the vibration of a song. To imagine that hymn now is to feel the cosmos as a cradle of tones, resonant yet quiet. The thought softens like strings, plucked one by one in the stillness of dusk. Each vibration lingers, overlaps, lengthens not in clamor, but in patience. The melody seems infinite, not because it grows louder, but because it never closes. The song moves gently forward, yet folds endlessly back into itself, a hush turning into hush. The cloth hums with this cadence, as though each star glows not only as light, but as sound stretched thin across the sky, and the hum itself dissolves into calm. The rhythm of such vision feels like breath made visible, inhalation, lengthening, into exhalation, exhalation, softening into pause. The weave holds that rhythm as though every thread is aligned with pulse and tide, with dawn and dusk. To walk upon such a fabric would be to feel no corners, no edges, only the yielding of surface beneath the feet, only the curving of melody beneath the heart. And in that yielding, the hush draws deeper. The fabric seems endless, yet tender, not taut, but supple moving with what rests upon it. Galaxies appear as patterns embroidered stars, as notes threaded into the cloth, each shining yet blended, each distinct yet joined. The cloth does not scatter them nor confine them, but lets them shimmer in place, suspended in the great hymn. The eye traces the weave without end, the ear listens without close, and the thought drifts into that listening. The myth and the fabric intertwine the Vedic hymn, humming through the night sky, the song stretching as cloth, the cloth shimmering as song. Both seem to speak not of conclusion, but of continuation, not of walls, but of resonance. To imagine the cosmos as music is to imagine each moment as part of a phrase that neither begins nor ends, only flows. And in that flowing silence itself becomes a note cradling what sound leaves behind. The hush grows vast, like night folding into its deepest watch. To rest within this fabric is to feel both distance and hour softened, to feel the body rocked not only by space around, but by time within. The song becomes a lull, the lull becomes a blanket, and the blanket becomes the weave itself. What seems unreachable softens into presence. What seems fleeting softens into duration, and the breath lengthens to match it, slow quiet. Thus, the cosmos appears a fabric woven of distance, an hour, a hymn carried without cease, a cradle made of song. To drift into it is to release the sense of edge, to yield to the unbroken continuity of tone. The stars shimmer as notes, the hours stretch as rests, and together they fold into a melody that never closes. And in that melody, sleep deepens like breath into breath, like hush into hush, endlessly gentle. And from the cloth that hums with song, the thought glides onward toward folds even quieter, where the weave bends into curves too wide for sight, and where the hymn itself seems to pause, holding silence, as though silence were also music. The journey continues slow as dusk, soft as breath, and from the fabric that hummed like a hymn without end, the drift turns toward older visions, when silence still wrapped thought, and the edge of the world seemed nearer than breath. The mind of long ago did not wander through measureless horizons, but painted borders upon the sky, as if the night were a great bowl lifted and complete. What lay beyond seemed unneeded, for the visible was enough to cradle wonder. And so, the stories of boundaries grew gentle in their certainty. The ocean often appeared as the first edge, a rolling plain of water stretched without end until it seemed to fold into nothingness. To those who watched its tides, the sea carried both distance and border, both path and wall. It whispered of realms that might lie past its rim, yet held them back in mist. The swell of waves became a frontier drawn by nature itself, an unseen line between the known and the unseen. And in that line, the thought of limit softened into acceptance. Above, the sky curved like a dome, blue by day and black by night, its arc resting as if upon distant peaks. That dome felt close, protective, rounding the world with its own embrace. Clouds drifted beneath stars, glittered within, and the vault seemed to end just where the gaze could reach. The imagination painted it as ceiling, not as endless distance shaping heaven into a chamber of light. And in that chamber, silence appeared sheltered. Mountains, too, offered their weight to the idea of edges. Ranges rising into the mist seemed like walls holding the horizon, in place their summits cutting off the passage of vision. The ridges felt as though they marked a true ending, the place where sky leaned upon stone. To wander toward them was to imagine a final border, the last step before the world fell away. Yet even then, the mountains only folded into further mist, the limit dissolving into distance. And in that dissolving, the heart found calm. The Maya told of a great tree, the ceiba, whose roots reached deep into hidden realms, and whose branches rose into the sky, holding it aloft. The world itself seemed balanced by its trunk, a living pillar between earth and heaven. Its crown spread wide like a net of stars, woven into green like constellations held in wood. The tail shaped the sky not as boundless emptiness, but as canopy suspended by living strength. And beneath that canopy, existence seemed secure, resting in shade. The thought lingers on such images, soft as breath through leaves. To imagine the cosmos as tree or dome, as sea or mountain, was to give the unknown a shape that soothed a boundary, that kept fear at bay. The mind drifted not into void, but into chambers defined by nature's hand, chambers that offered presence instead of absence. In those chambers, the night folded like a blanket, comforting in its closeness. And yet, even within those shapes, silence whispered of more. The ocean had no end. Within sight, the dome curved too smoothly to touch the mountains faded into haze, and the trees' branches seemed to stretch beyond what vision could hold. The borders felt certain, but they also carried mystery, as though the world's edges themselves breathed out promise. And in that promise, imagination stirred quiet but steady. The rhythm of these ancient thoughts drifts like a tide, rolling between certainty and wonder. Limits calmed the mind, yet horizons invited dream. And within that balance, stories found their place. The night did not speak of infinity, but it hummed of shelter of edges, drawn like lullabies upon the vast. And the lull of such edges carried minds into rest, giving form to what was unseen. Thus the old myths rest alongside the stars, not as walls but as gentle shapes traced upon the unknown. They remind that even when knowledge was small, imagination stretched wide, weaving sea and sky, mountain and tree into a cradle for thought. The universe seemed smaller, then yet no less tender, no less embracing. And the hush of those ancient visions still drifts like echoes, folded into night. And from these tales of borders, drawn and skies upheld, the thought glides once more toward visions, where edges fade, where boundaries soften, where the cosmos itself bends, without seam, carrying all paths back into itself like a circle without end. And from the myths that painted roots and oceans as borders, the thought drifts further into the realm, where imagination itself became brush and canvas, giving shape to the edge not yet seen. The universe unfolded not only through sight, but through dream, where the unseen was drawn, as if the curtain of the sky had lifted slightly to reveal another chamber beyond. In that lifting, wonder lingered. Imagination offered a map where no road could reach, a sketch of horizons that the eyes could not yet find. The edge of space seemed to open, like a fold in fabric, the sky no longer a wall, but a veil half parted, trembling with the suggestion of more. To dream of such an opening was not to escape the known, but to soften its limits, letting the mind breathe into distance. The breath of thought painted the unseen, and the painting dissolved into hush. The sky in this vision resembled cloth stretched across a vast loom, each star a stitch, each streak of light a woven thread. To imagine a hand pulling back its edge was to imagine the universe not as sealed, but as garment shifting to reveal another layer beneath. The fold did not demand to be crossed, only to be glimpsed a hem, lifting to show the dream of continuation. And in that glimpse, a quiet promise seemed to glow. The stories of painters tell of those who once dared to depict the heavens as a stage, its curtain drawn back to uncover what waited behind. In the brushstrokes of such vision, stars were lanterns on the front cloth, while beyond them lay another field vaster and darker, yet shimmering with unnamed light. The act of painting the sky as curtain gave rest to thought, for it turned the unreachable into art, into surface touched by hand, and in the surface, mystery became gentler. Dreams followed the brush, filling the canvas with scenes not yet seen. Some painted worlds floating like islands beyond the horizon. Others drew stairways that reached into silver clouds. Others still laid rivers of light flowing off the canvas into further night. The works were not claims of truth, but lullabies for the eyes, visions that soothed by suggesting that the unknown could be tender, that the horizon could be beautiful. And in their softness, the images seemed to breathe. Imagination itself became like a tide, carrying thought outward and returning it inward, never breaking. The act of drawing borders on paper calmed the sense of boundlessness, while at the same time opening the mind to more. A line traced on canvas felt like a doorway, a place where the gaze could rest. Yet just beyond that line, color blurred into haze, as if to say that beyond every edge lay another dream, the hush of dream folded into the hush of sky. Long ago, in whispered tales, there was said to be a painter who pictured the universe as a great stage, with its curtain slightly raised, as though the performance of existence revealed only a part, while the rest waited in shadow. The stars glowed upon the curtain like embroidered lights, and the gap showed a sliver of another realm half hidden, but alive. The tale suggested that all vision was but prelude, all knowing but first seen. And in that thought, the night seemed deeper, kinder. The brush of imagination lingered like breath upon glass, leaving outlines that faded even as they appeared. To picture the edge of the universe was to touch a dream, not with certainty, but with softness, as if tracing patterns in fog. The images came and went like ripples across still water, vanishing while leaving memory of their shape. And in that memory, the heart found calm. Thus, imagination painted the borders not to capture them, but to cradle them. The lifted curtain, the woven fabric, the painted dome, the stage half revealed, all became lullabies in color and formed songs of vision turned into image. The pictures did not demand belief. They only offered rest away for thought to settle into wonder. And in settling, the mind itself seemed to close its eyes, as though drifting into a painted dream. And from these painted curtains and softened borders, the drift continues toward visions where even the circle of space bends without seam. carrying every path into return, like waves folding endlessly into waves. And from the painted veil that lifted in dream, the thought drifts into quieter ground, where the gaze of modern science leans gently against the horizon, asking not for endings but for sight. The horizon does not appear as wall nor barrier, but as the simple limit of how far light has wandered, a boundary drawn not by stone, but by time's slow hand. The edge seems less an obstruction than a pause, a line where vision exhales and waits. And in that waiting, the universe appears wider still, folding beyond the reach of sight. It resembles the outline drawn by an eye, soft and curved, shaping the scene, not because the world ends there, but because the gaze does. The contour of vision becomes the contour of cosmos, though behind it, the weave continues, slipping away into unseen silence. The thought feels like standing at the edge of a meadow at dusk, where shadow thickens into trees, yet the path carries on beneath the dim. The border belongs to the eye, not the land, and in that awareness, calm gathers. The modern view drifts like a lantern through mist, illuminating not closure, but openness, not confinement, but depth. Galaxies float within reach of sight, yet beyond them drift more unseen, unlit, awaiting their turn to arrive. Each starry cluster feels like a note, heard in passing, its echo carried forward, while countless more hum softly beyond the hearing. The horizon, in this sense, is not the end of song, but the fading of one verse into another, yet unplayed. And the music lingers without ceasing. It softens further when imagined as a dome without bricks, a sky whose vault curves into itself without edge, where space stretches quietly into more space, layer upon layer. The mind follows outward, tracing paths that bend away, yet never strike a final wall. What feels like boundary melts into continuation, a line that bends gently back, suggesting that perhaps no rim waits beyond. The gaze circles itself as though the universe were round and seamless, and the circle dissolves into hush. Long ago, within the writing of Renaissance thinkers, words appeared that whispered of a cosmos without barriers, vast beyond imagining, held not by walls but by openness. They spoke of infinity with the same tenderness as dreamers spoke of stars turning science itself into lullaby. To them, the universe seemed like a boundless plain where no enclosure hemmed the sight and where thought could drift forever outward. The vision was not of imprisonment, but of release, and the release felt gentle as dawn. Such ideas fold now into the language of light and expansion, yet they carry the same softness, for the cosmos appears less like a fortress and more like a breath. Each inhalation drifts outward, carrying galaxies with it. Each exhalation folds them into rhythm, yet no end is touched. The edge of sight stretches farther with time, yet the unseen always remains waiting, as patient as a tide. The thought seems to hum that sight is only a window, not the house itself, and the house remains vast and quiet. The border of vision resembles a shoreline where the sea stretches further than the gaze can hold. Waves seem to stop at the horizon, but they do not. They continue rolling unseen, carrying their murmurs into distance. The horizon belongs to the eye, not the sea, and the sea drifts on, regardless, swelling in its unbroken song. To think of the cosmos in such a way is to feel its breath, moving beyond perception, unfolding silently, tenderly. and the silence rests like sleep across the sky. So the modern sense of cosmos hums not as finality, but as veil, not as a locked gate, but as a curtain half drawn, showing enough to comfort, leaving the rest for time. The gaze touches what light has reached, yet behind that light stretch, distances untouched melodies, unplayed forests unseen. The unseen does not vanish, it simply lingers outside the rhythm of eyes, and in that lingering calm spreads like dusk across a plain. Thus, the vision of science and the vision of dream fold into one another, each speaking of horizons as limits not of world, but of sight. The edge is not where the cosmos closes, but where the gaze exhales, where light has paused before arriving further. The mind that rests with this thought feels not confined, but opened, soothed by the knowledge that beyond every border lies more waiting, patient, tender. And in that tenderness, the night deepens into quiet. And from the horizon, drawn by the eye's own outline, the thought drifts once again into the circle where borders fade entirely, where space itself may curve without end, carrying each path back toward its own beginning like a tide that never breaks. And from the horizon, shaped by thought and science alike, the drift turns gently as though another current had joined one woven not of numbers but of dreams. Both streams flow side by side, quiet companions, their waters moving in harmony without merging their rhythms, keeping balance in the hush of night. The gaze follows one, then the other, and finds that neither diminishes the other, for both sing of the same vastness in different voices. Science leans outward like a lantern dream, curls inward like a whisper, and together they cradle the dark. The circle closes softly into lull. It resembles two rivers, winding beside each other through valleys one, reflecting the stars above the other, carrying the murmurs of unseen springs. Their surfaces differ, yet their journeys run parallel, both feeding the same ocean of night. The first flows with clarity, tracing the stones, the bends, the distance. The second flows with mist, carrying shadows, echoes, visions. Both seem true, though, in different ways, and the traveler along their banks feels no need to choose. The dual current becomes a single rhythm of calm. In the quiet of thought, the universe appears as if woven of these twin strands, one spun from reason, the other from myth, together, creating a fabric that glimmers with both explanation and wonder. Each strand alone would seem thin, fragile, easy to break, but entwined they form something enduring, supple enough to bend yet strong enough to hold. The loom of night carries both threads without preference, allowing their colors to shimmer side by side. And in that shimmering lies stillness. The stories of ancient lands breathe through this fabric like breezes through trees, reminding that long before stars were measured, they were sung of as guardians and guides. Dreams gave them voices, forms, purposes, while science gave them distances, patterns, relations. Both approaches appear less like rivals than like reflections in water, each completing what the other leaves open. To drift between them is to feel that the cosmos holds room for both lamps and lullabies, both calculations and chance, and the lull continues unbroken. In the far plains of Persia, whispers told of dreams as secret pathways, doors through which the soul could wander beyond the stars. Night was not just rest, but voyage, carrying the sleeper past veils of sky into other realms unseen while waking. To step into sleep was to step onto a hidden road guided not by maps, but by visions where boundaries fell away and horizons curved into unknown worlds. Dreams became a bridge fragile, yet profound, a thread across the silence, and their softness lingers still. Such tales fold gently beside the lantern light of reason, for though one speaks in poetry and the other in diagrams, both rest upon the same desire to touch what lies beyond sight. The dream extends the heart, the science extends the eye, and between them, the mind is carried deeper into calm. Each offers a way of being with the cosmos, one through wonder, one through witness, both swaying together, like grasses moved by the same breeze, and the breeze sighs like breath in sleep. The streams converge without merging, like melodies played in harmony, one carrying rhythm, the other carrying tone. The balance between them feels less like a division and more like a cycle, as though each takes a turn in guiding each, yielding gently to the other. Science speaks where dream pauses, dream hums where science rests, and in their alternation lies a lull soft and endless. The cosmos becomes both field and story, both equation and song, and the song drifts away like mist. To think of the two together is to rest in a vision where the universe is not defined, but evoked, not caged, but allowed to flow. What the numbers trace the myth's color, what the myths sing the numbers steady. The two currents do not struggle, they drift side by side, carrying the gaze outward, carrying the heart inward, and between them opens a space of quiet balance, where the mind loosens, the breath steadies, and rest deepens. The hush folds softly over all. Thus the streams of science and story continue, neither ending, neither claiming, both flowing onward into the same unseen ocean. To follow them is to follow both clarity and mystery, both the lamp and the dream. And in their companionship, the night grows fuller, not with noise but with harmony, a lull that neither questions nor concludes. The rivers slip onward, the fabric hums, the dreams wander, the galaxies shine, all within the same cradle of silence. And from these twin currents, the thought turns once more, drifting toward the ancient roots of story itself, where myths first shaped the edges of the sky, and where the oldest trees were said to hold the heavens in place. And from the twin streams of dream and reason, the thought drifts toward an image, one that holds the vastness without demanding to be measured, a picture painted only to rest the gaze. The edge of the universe seems less like a wall and more like a field beneath moonlight, wide and quiet, unfolding without urgency. Vision reaches as far as light allows, yet beyond that limit, there may be more hidden, not by denial, but by distance, as though the horizon itself were a gentle veil. What science names as boundary feels instead like a soft curve, drawn by sight alone, a border made by the eyes, not by the stars. And so, the edge appears as presence without edge. It resembles a meadow bathed in pale glow, each blade of grass touched by silver, stretching further than the step could follow. The moon hangs low above its light, trembling across the field, making the distance shimmer as though stitched with threads of frost. To walk there in thought is to walk within endlessness, each step welcomed, yet none required. The field remains whether one advances or rests, and its vastness hums like a lull. The hush deepens as though breath itself lengthens. The imagined boundary of the cosmos feels like such a meadow, an expanse that does not need to be crossed, but simply beheld. Its farthest reaches are softened by haze, giving the impression that the world continues, even where vision loosens. The edge is no cliff, no finality, but a horizon folded by perception, a circle shaped not by stone, but by light's reach. To think of it brings no tension, only ease, as though the eyes themselves were resting. Long ago, in the poetry of the Middle East, the moon was likened to a blossom at the edge of the sky, a white flower suspended in silence. The heavens were seen as a garden, too wide to tend, and at its boundary grew this luminous bloom, marking the outermost petal. To gaze upon it was not to measure distance, but to accept beauty, at the limit of sight a reminder that what is seen need not end what exists. The flower swayed gently in verse, its stem hidden in the dark, its fragrance carried in words, and the poem dissolved into quiet. So too, the universe drifts into image, turning boundaries into metaphors rather than marks. The edge seems as though drawn not by the cosmos, but by those who look painted with the ink of perception upon the canvas of night. To imagine the limit is to sketch the meadow, the blossom, the vale. Yet behind each picture lies the suggestion of more. The mind soothes itself with form, but the form is only a gesture, never a closure, and the gesture hums like wind across the grass. The rhythm of thought flows softer now, folding into a sense of endlessness shaped by vision, but not bound by it. The field of night stretches outward, the blossom gleams faintly, the horizon curves into haze, and each image carries the same lull that the cosmos cannot be confined to edges, but can be carried gently within the heart as picture as dream. To rest within these images is to rest within the cosmos itself, drawn not with walls, but with whispers. The hush gathers like mist settling on water. The boundary seems less a destination than a pause, less a line than a reflection, less a truth than a dream. Each metaphor becomes a cradle, each story a way of softening the vastness into something the heart can hold. The meadow soothes the step, the blossom soothes the eye, the veil soothes the breath. None ask to be crossed, none ask to be proven. They simply linger, like songs that fade, but never vanish. Thus the image closes around itself, not in finality, but in return. The cosmos drifts into vision as though into sleep, its edges dissolving into meadows, blossoms, veils. The thought follows slow and unbroken breathing with the rhythm of the dark, and within that, breathing the sense of limit fades, leaving only the quiet of presence, and from the soft meadow of image, the thought drifts onward again toward the stillness of return, where the edge is not a distance, but a circle that gathers all within. And from the meadow of images, where the moon glowed like a blossom at the edge of the sky, the thought moves inward again toward the circle that seems to hold all within its quiet span. The universe feels less like a place with a rim, and more like a vast shelter folding every horizon into itself, leaving no corner outside. What appears as distance in one direction bends back into presence in another, so that the farthest edge seems less a departure than a return. There is comfort in this sense of enclosure, not as boundary, but as embrace, as though the cosmos itself were drawing a circle wide enough to gather all its scattered flames. The circle lingers like a breath that never breaks. It resembles the form of a circle traced slowly on water, each ripple joining the next, until no beginning can be found. To drift upon such a shape is to feel that movement cannot escape, only turn again, softening into its own rhythm. The night appears held in such a way, with every star folded back into the same hole, no matter how far the eye may follow. And the quiet deepens, for in this vision, nothing seems adrift. The hush grows gentler, as though the sky itself exhales. Within this imagined circle, there is no place too distant, no horizon beyond reach, only the sensation that all belongs to the same curve. Even the faintest glow feels gathered into the same shelter, as though the dark itself were a roof drawn close above. The edge dissolves into inclusion, a roundness that refuses to let anything fall away, and the roundness soothes like a cradle. Long ago, among the Inuit of the far north, the sky was spoken of as a great tent stretched across the world, its fabric arched and steady, protecting all who dwelled beneath. The stars shimmered like tiny fires sewn into the cloth, while the moon drifted as a lantern hung from its frame. Within that shelter, no being seemed unguarded, for the heavens themselves leaned close, bending into care. The story whispered not of remoteness, but of closeness, of a dwelling vast enough to contain every breath of life, and the tent rested in silence. The thought folds into that vision as though the tent and the circle are the same, both shapes of gathering, both gestures of protection. The universe appears less as a space to wander and more as a roof spread endlessly above, making even the farthest distances feel included. To imagine this is to feel less alone, for the circle speaks not of exile, but of belonging, not of boundaries, but of embrace. The hush of such belonging falls gently like snow upon still earth. The rhythm settles slower, each breath carrying the sense of being held. The circle of space feels not abstract, but intimate, a shape that turns every path back into wholeness. Stars drift within it, as though within a single ocean, waves separated yet joined by the same tide. No ripple escapes the surface, no flame falls outside the round. The thought soothes, for it suggests a place without outside, a home without edge, and the comfort lingers like a lull. The hush gathers thicker, like dusk, pressing across wide fields. To dwell upon the idea of an embracing cosmos is to rest within inclusion itself, where even silence feels folded into the whole. The eye may wander, but it drifts only within the circle. The mind may stretch outward, but it curves back again. This motion does not confine, but relaxes, for the return is not forced, only natural, as though every path were gently guided. The embrace seems endless, yet calm. So the universe drifts into vision as a circle without seam, a shelter without break. The tent of stars sways above the circle of water, ripples below, and both fold into one another like layers of dream. To lie beneath such an image is to feel gathered, not scattered, to feel sheltered, not lost. The cosmos does not appear distant in this vision, but close surrounding, as breath surrounds the chest, and the thought dissolves into quiet, and from the circle that holds without edge, the drift continues toward still deeper silences, where the unseen hums like a lull within the folds of night, and from the circle that gathered all within its quiet embrace, the thought moves closer to the pulse that beats within each chest, a pulse that seems to echo the silent swell of the heavens themselves. Every breath feels like a tide, rising and falling, gentle and unhurried, folding the body into the same rhythm that the stars appear to follow. The inhale stretches outward like the slow widening of sky, and the exhale draws inward, Like the night folding its arms around the world, each cycle repeats without haste, as though guided by a hidden music too vast to hear, yet too intimate to ignore. And the music lingers in stillness. It seems as though the lungs and the cosmos belong to one vast ocean, both rising and falling in their own waves, yet somehow meeting at the shore of quiet awareness. A single breath drifts like a ripple across the mind, while the expansion of space itself feels like a faraway tide, the two motions reflecting one another. To rest within such a vision is to sense that nothing is apart, for the smallest sigh echoes the grandest horizon, and the echo dissolves into calm. In this hush, the inhale appears no longer bound to the body, but stretches outward like a beam of dawn, carrying with it the same widening that the universe seems to carry through its endless unfolding. The exhale returns as twilight returns soft cooling and enfolding, closing the circle with tender inevitability. Between the two lies a pause as delicate as starlight suspended on dark water, neither beginning nor ending, but resting in balance, and the balance drifts into silence. Long ago, among the stories of the first peoples of the vast southern lands, breath was spoken of as a thread that wove together the body and the earth. Each inhale was told to draw in the essence of sky, while each exhale returned a gift to the soil and stone, so that human breathing was never apart from the breathing of the world. To them, the chest rose as mountains rise and fell as rivers fall, the body swaying in rhythm with the dream of the land itself, and the dream folded into night. This tale blends with the image of the universe itself, breathing not with lungs of flesh, but with expanses of light and shadow stretching outward in a hush that feels like an eternal sigh. To imagine one's breath as part of that greater rhythm is to feel less contained, more diffused, as though each inhale were shared with the stars and each exhale carried back to them. The exchange flows endlessly, neither giver nor receiver, only the slow cycle of being, and the cycle soothes like a cradle. The thought deepens as though the body rests upon a larger chest, rising and falling with its calm. To breathe, then, is not to labor, but to join the pulse that was present long before and will continue long after a rhythm, not owned, but borrowed, not forced, but offered. Each moment of stillness between breaths feels like the universe holding itself, neither contracting nor expanding, simply present, and the presence softens like dusk. Even silence seems filled with the motion of this breath, as if space itself were sighing softly through unseen lips. The stars appear to shimmer in time with the inhale, and the dark grows tender with the exhale, the whole sky leaning closer with each cycle. The listener drifts into this cadence as though cradled the lungs, moving without effort, guided by the same tide that guides the galaxies. And the cadence quiets the mind, so the universe and the body seem joined in a single tide, one vast, one small, both carrying the same lull. To sense this union is to rest more deeply, to feel enclosed not by walls, but by rhythm, not by boundaries, but by waves. Breath becomes more than survival. It becomes participation in the soft pulse of creation, a sharing of life with all that shines and all that waits in shadow, and the sharing hums like a lullaby. And from the breath that flows both inward and outward, the thought drifts further into the spaces where silence deepens, and the stars themselves seem to fall asleep within their own light. And from the breath that joined the chest with the sky, the thought drifts inward, where silence folds into dreams, as though creating a smaller universe within the mind itself. Each dream seems to unfold like a sky enclosed with stars that appear only when the lids fall, scattering their light across the inner horizon. The brain shapes valleys and rivers of thought, as though weaving constellations of memory into landscapes unseen by waking eyes. Every vision breathes with its own rhythm, a world sealed yet infinite to the dreamer, and the world dissolves like mist. It feels as if each sleeping mind holds a planet of its own, circling in shadow, yet glowing quietly when night descends. Legends whisper of tiny spheres, born at the moment of sleep, glimmering softly in the darkness, flickering alive only when the eyes rest. These planets drift without weight, bound by no orbit, belonging only to the hush of slumber, and the hush lingers like a cradle. From this inward sky, the thought flows outward again toward the rim that so many have sought, the line where vision fades and mystery begins. Yet the edge seems no more solid than the reflection of the moon on water, retreating with each step taken closer, vanishing into distance as though it were made of nothing but light. To chase it is to wander forever, for it drifts like a shadow receding with dawn, and the shadow melts into stillness. Ancient tales speak of wanderers searching for the farthest boundary, like Orpheus, descending into depths, only to find that the true horizon lay not in distance, but within the heart. The end becomes a turning back the farthest journey, collapsing into a single inward gaze, as though the cosmos folds itself into a circle of thought, and the circle closes into silence. So the search softens, no longer rushing outward, but resting in the sense that no edge needs to be touched, for the universe appears as a field without walls, a breathing fabric without border. To stand within it is to feel surrounded not by barriers, but by the same air that carries dreams, the same darkness that carries stars, and the air hums like a lullaby. At last, the vision returns to quiet, where space itself leans over, in comfort, vast and tender, as though it were a sky stretched into a shelter. The whole expanse moves with calm regularity, steady as a cradle, rocked by unseen hands, holding both planets and sleepers in the same embrace. The night deepens with that embrace. Stories from far lands tell of rest as a river returning to its source, each current carrying away burdens until only stillness remains. The darkness becomes gentle, flowing around the body like cool water, drawing every thought into ease. To surrender is to drift upon that river, guided back into the ocean of silence, and the silence closes softly like arms folded in peace.